Let's talk grip and why. So the whole point of grip is obviously to get hold of the gun, but most importantly is to manage recoil. The whole point of managing recoil is so that after you take the shot and the gun starts to recoil, it's going to return back to where it started, back on zero. So let's talk about all the pressure that you need to put onto the gun. So right here, you'll find that this is the fulcrum of the gun. This is where all the controls are. Remember, the accelerator and the stop. And you'll also find that when the slide actually recoils and goes back, the thing that actually stops it is called a locking block, which is on the inside of the gun. Most people think that it stops here because of this thing called muzzle flip, when it feels like it's breaking your wrist. The recoil is not the thing that actually makes you feel like it's breaking your wrist. It's actually when the slide stops. Remember, the slide is about 400 grams, depending on what gun you have, and it's moving backwards at like 250 something kilometers per hour, and then it comes back at a similar speed. So it's got some weight behind it, and as it stops, it gives you that feeling of like it's breaking your wrist. The other force that happens, you felt it every time you've maybe done a slide lock. Look what happens. I'm just gonna release the slide, and then the gun sort of does this whole thing that it goes back. It's just the weight of the gun going forward. So again, there's a few forces happening in recoil. So recoil is the slide going backwards. When the slide stops, it then does a muzzle flip. After muzzle flip, when the slide comes back, it also does a nosedive. So these are all the pressures that basically you need to be handling in order for you to understand how to return the gun back to zero. So what is actually happening and where can you put your pressures? When the slide starts to go backwards, the gun's going to start to move that way. So let's say this is the end of your recoil angle. So now you need to understand where to put pressure so that you bring the gun back on zero again. So I'm holding it on the fulcrum here, as I said, where all the controls are and also where the locking block is. Can you put pressure here? No, you can't, for obvious reasons. But the most important thing that you need to understand here is the further away you are from the fulcrum, the easier it is for you to apply the pressure because of the law of leverage. Underneath here, can you put pressure here? Yeah, not really, for obvious reasons. But you have seen on certain guns, especially competition guns, they will have some weight in this area here, or some people like to put a light, like a torch on here, to give it that weight in order for you to manage the weight in this area. You've obviously seen these little cuts in front of your gun here, and some people are always asking, what is that? What is that? Well, it's part of the grip. Now look what happens that I'm now moving closer to the fulcrum. Easier here, easy here. Now that I'm getting closer to the fulcrum, when I apply pressure here, slight resistance, which means that slight resistance from the law of leverage, so getting closer to where I am, but you can put pressure here. You've seen some shooters like Eric Graffel, Lena Michalek, when she started, she even used to have two fingers on here. The local guys, the Wanda Zamas and all those guys that also shoot with this understanding of putting their finger here by putting pressure. So another area where you can put pressure. The other place where I guess we all sort of 90% agree with what needs to happen with your shooting hand is the three fingers that go underneath your trigger guard. So let's go look again. When I'm closest to the fulcrum, what happens? Again, slightly tougher to put pressure here than to put pressure here. Here's so easy, it feels so simple. The other one that you need to understand is what happens now to your middle finger. So let's say your middle finger goes there. It's getting slightly easier. The other one then, it's your pinky, where your pinky will go. So let's put pressure there. Feels about easier as about there. Again, law of leverage, furthest away from the fulcrum, the easier it is for me to move the gun. So again, you've seen people with a funny grip, I would say maybe, but the understanding is they call it the teacup and saucer. Again, if you know where to put pressure in the right area, you see what happens. Nothing wrong with that. But again, is this going to be consistent all the time, or are you going to be able to shoot and this is going to be leaving the gun all the time? So things to think about. Again, on the shooting end, we agree that your web of your hand high in the tang, this is the tang of the gun or the beaver tail. So again, look what happens when I put pressure there. So all of these areas are very important for you to put pressure. So that is why some people are being told either with your shooting hand, three fingers all the way back, no space over there. Or some people will say, no, just put pressure only with the middle finger. again, as I've shown, if I put pressure only with the middle finger, it can somewhat manage the recoil, but it's a little bit tougher. Then some people say, no, loosen these two fingers because you need this one to be loose so you can shoot fast. Let's just then tighten the two bottom fingers, your ring finger and your pinky. And again, let's put pressure in these two areas again, easy again. Some people will also say, no, 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 no. Just put pressure only with your pinky. Remember, some people are still under the impression that your pinky is your weakest finger. No, it's not. The ring finger is. So it can also put a lot of pressure into the gun. And again, it's furthest away from the fulcrum, which should be easier. So again, when you put pressure here, look what happens. So some people will say, no, just try out, put pressure with your pinky. So now I've given you a few ways or places where you definitely need to put pressure. It's just you need to articulate that to yourself as to how you're going to be doing that. Now, let's discuss what happens with your support hand. And the arguments are going to start. So let's discuss on this side. As you can see, there's a good area here. And most of us, doesn't matter, this is a full Glock 17 and you can see it's a full grip. But again, I don't think I've got enough space for this drumstick. You see my drumstick here, this area there. I don't have enough space here to put my drumstick there and then pull the gun there. I don't have strength there because as you can see, if I start to put pressure, it starts to peel this hand off. If it starts to peel this hand off, which means that I'm gonna now put pressure more onto this gun, then low left shots are gonna come from my right hand. So don't want to do that. So this is what I started off with. It did not work. No matter what I did, no matter how much pressure I did, even if when I put pressure at the back of the gun like this and hold on to it, I couldn't. The only thing that kept on happening, it kept on opening this hand up and this one wanted to grip, and then I was having a lot of inconsistencies. So then I tried sort of, I would say, the new way. You can look at the YouTube channels, but it's the idea of you take your drumstick and then you basically fill it in this area here. So the thumb basically points at the target and the drumstick fits in that area there. And then once I grip around, point it forward, this now is much more solid for me because I'm also putting grip onto the gun and I'm also putting pressure onto my right hand. Thus then I don't need a lot of pressure to put with my right hand. So the pressure is basically all of it onto this hand. All I'm basically doing is this hand is just connected to the gun. This one is the one that's actually doing the recoil and also doing target transitioning and also all the admin with the gun, all sorts of stuff. So again, all I'm doing is putting my thumb, facing it forward, and then wrapping around the gun like that. As you can see, I've got this callus over there. That callus is basically caused by the fact that I'm putting pressure on to the magazine release. And yes, some people are going to have problems with that, but it's a malfunction that I know that I'm causing. And again, when you start to shoot a lot, you'll start to see that even when you run out of rounds, when you're still shooting, you're still going to be pressing like 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And then only after you press like twice or 3 times, you're going to realize you run out of ammo. So it's something that doesn't bother me too much, even for competition shooting. Again, some people know slide lock back, easier to have a reload and then slide forward, back into the grip. I still don't mind putting it in and then racking and getting back onto it again. It's just that something that I know that I'm able to cause. So again, try as best as you can. But again, there is like a magazine release that you can buy that goes up high like that. It comes about that area there. So those are helping out for me. I kept on messing with it because of how my grip works. So I just decided to leave it as stock standard. So again, this hand drumstick fits in this area facing that way, not facing up. Not up like that, but facing towards target, wrap around. Now, let's look at what happens on this side. My fingers are gonna be in between the knuckles, not on top. If they are on top of the knuckles, every time I shoot, it's gonna move, which means that I'm gonna lose my connection to the pistol. So the idea for me, as you can see, I've got 2 other ones, calluses over there. Why? Is because when I wrap, I pull my finger there and I squeeze. This squeezing the drumstick into the side of the frame on the other side, and these are the only 2 things I do. I don't need a thumb rest. As you can see, my thumb is always like floating. It's because I'm squeezing into the gun in that way, and then also pinching the trigger guard underneath with my other index finger on my right. So I don't need a thumb rest. I'm not pressing down. I'm not pressing into the gun that way either. All I'm doing is that putting pressure on this way and then squeezing, pinching it at the bottom like this. This gets me nicely connected to the gun, so much so that I'm just nicely connected. Yes, I put a lot of pressure, and these calluses also come from me dry firing a lot. It's not only from shooting only, but a lot of dry fire sessions. As you can see, the other one, because of where the trigger guard sits, and it squeezes on this side and on that side. So it's both those two calluses there. And that's basically how my grip works. And on this side, it's all just connected. So the concept is this: apple and banana. What am I talking about? The hand that is your support hand. Imagine that you're holding an apple and you're crushing it. Not massaging it, but crushing it. You need to keep the crush on the whole time, throughout the whole firing sequence. On your right hand, you are holding the most ripened banana you've ever held in your hand. I do not want any banana juice. I just want you to hold it lightly that it doesn't squirt anything. On this one, I want to see crushed apple juice the whole time. Apple, banana. And that's basically how I grip the gun. So again, you are looking to understand why. It's because recoil happens. When recoil happens, the gun's gonna stop. That is muzzle flip. It's gonna flip. Again, when muzzle flip happens, you gotta understand, you gotta manage it to bring it back onto target, and then it's gonna nose dip. That is why, again, I put pressure underneath the trigger guard so that when it comes back nicely on target, instead of just being connected only to the grip. Then I'm going to be dealing with a lot of recoil, muzzle flip, and then nose dive, and then come back on target. So what I'm trying to basically do is the gun to do basically do that, up and down in that fashion. So again, pressure. I only put pressure with 3 of my fingers backwards, and that's all I do. The only pressure I'm putting is backwards. I'm not wrapping my fingers around. I'm leaving this hand to make sure that this shooting hand is connected to the gun. So this does all the pressures. This just gets connected to the gun. The only thing that is there for the shooting hand is for it to stay as limp as possible, obviously with a stiff wrist, but limp as possible so that I'm able to articulate the trigger as quickly as possible. So in that fashion, that is how the grip works. You're trying to basically manage so that it comes back on there. So again, you can put pressure there, you can put pressure there, you can put pressure there, and you can put pressure there. And you can put pressure there. And that is why then high in the beaver tail, look, when I put pressure there, what happens? So again, all we agree what happens on this side. On this side, I'm trying to fill all of this area with my drumstick. This area, all of this area must fit in that area. Thumb facing forward, fingers wrap around. As they wrap around, they must be in between the knuckles, not on top of the knuckles, because then it's going to move around quite a lot. And then I just squeeze. Crush the apple, hold the soft banana, but stay connected. And that's my grip. So let's do the demo of all the pressures.